What an awakened empath becomes. The death of the helper. Carl Jung. Your hyper-empathy is not a divine gift. It is a desperate trauma response. That bone-chilling silence when you finally cut toxic people off isn't cruelty. It's survival. Watch to the end to uncover the horrifying truth about emotional vampires and why you must stop setting yourself on fire. The chilling silence and the toxic lie of the innate gift. There is a deeply unsettling, almost terrifying silence that I have witnessed time and time again within the four walls of my clinical practice. It happens when a person sits across from me, their eyes completely devoid of hesitation, their breathing remarkably steady, and in a flat, deadpan tone, they utter a single sentence. I have cut them off completely. No tears streak their face. There is no agonizing twist of guilt, no frantic, desperate plea to be understood, and absolutely no attempt at justification. To a society obsessively fixated on unconditional forgiveness and saint-like tolerance, this exact fraction of a second looks like the ultimate manifestation of pure, unadulterated cruelty. How can someone known their whole life as an empath, a living martyr who has perpetually carried the crushing weight of the world's pain, suddenly slam the door shut so brutally on their own flesh and blood, or on those who once meant the absolute universe to them? The inner multiverse warmly welcomes you to this space of brutal truths and unfiltered psychological revelations. If this resonates with the quiet rebellion stirring inside you, please take a moment to subscribe and support the channel, giving us the fuel to continue producing these deep, transformative videos for you. Now, let us strip away the societal guilt and look at this perceived cruelty through the sharp, unforgiving lens of psychoanalysis. I assure you, what looks like a loss of compassion is something entirely different. It is the devastatingly beautiful moment of a brutal awakening. It is the exact second an individual finally decides to stop setting themselves on fire just to keep other people warm. That bone-chilling coldness you see in their eyes, that is not apathy. That is the birth of an independent entity, a sovereign self that has grown utterly exhausted from playing the role of a free psychological ambulance for broken, toxic people. To truly understand this silence, we must violently tear down the first and arguably the most venomous lie you have ever been conditioned to believe. Hyper-empathy is not a spiritual miracle. It is not some divine, innate gift gracefully bestowed upon you by the universe so you can masquerade as the savior of shattered souls. The darkest, most naked truth that no one wants to admit is this: your uncanny ability to read the intricate emotions of others. That instantaneous supernatural skill to feel the agonizing pain of a room the second you step foot inside is, at its absolute core, a trauma response. It is a desperate survival mechanism forged in the merciless fires of a dangerously unsafe childhood environment. I want you to journey back with me to those fragile, formative years. When a child is raised in a house where the emotional climate of their caregivers is volatile, terrifyingly unpredictable, or outright abusive, that child's nervous system has no luxury of choice. It must evolve to survive. That child learns to meticulously analyze the heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway just to calculate what mood their parent is bringing home. They become master decoders of a slight frown, a muffled sigh, or the microscopic shift in a room's barometric pressure, all to predict if a catastrophic storm is about to make landfall. What you have so proudly labeled as empathy is, in clinical reality, a severe state of neurological hyper-vigilance. You are not absorbing others' emotions because you have a boundless heart. You are frantically scanning your environment like a military radar searching for hidden threats. When you instinctively contort yourself, bending over backward to soothe someone else's rage or appease their irrational demands, you are not being kind. You are executing a desperate maneuver to keep your immediate surroundings peaceful, because in your traumatized mind, a peaceful environment is the only guarantee that you will not be attacked. You have tragically intertwined the act of carrying your abuser's emotional baggage with your own physical and psychological safety. This monumental lie about your empathic gift has disguised a gaping, bleeding wound as a badge of honor, blinding you into fiercely protecting it instead of seeking the profound healing you actually deserve. The magnetic pull of emotional vampires and the illusion of healing. Once you strip away the romanticized myth of the empathic gift, you are left staring at the horrifying reality of why your hyper-vigilant nervous system inevitably draws you into the orbit of emotional predators. We have established that your hyper-empathy is a trauma response, a radar constantly scanning for threats. But there is a deeply insidious paradox at play here. You would logically think that someone who is terrified of chaos would run away from it. Yet in my practice, I see the exact opposite. Time and time again, I watch incredibly intelligent, deeply intuitive individuals walk directly into the jaws of narcissistic partners, manipulative friends, and emotionally unavailable family members. They do not just stumble into these toxic dynamics, they are magnetically pulled into them. Why? Because to a nervous system that was forged in the fires of childhood unpredictability, peace feels terrifyingly foreign, while chaos feels like home. You have been subconsciously conditioned to believe that love is something you must earn through agonizing emotional labor. When you meet someone who is broken, deeply flawed, or carrying an ocean of unresolved trauma, your inner radar lights up, not with a warning siren, but with a tragic sense of purpose. Your traumatized mind whispers a fatal lie. If I can fix them, if I can love them hard enough to heal their wounds, then I will finally be safe. You project your own desperate need for rescue onto them. You become their therapist, their emotional punching bag, and their endless well of validation. You absorb their darkest moods, constantly walking on eggshells, meticulously managing their triggers while entirely abandoning your own. This dynamic is not a relationship. It is a psychological parasitism. The individuals you are pouring your soul into are not looking for a partner or a beloved family member. They are looking for a host. They recognize your hyper-empathy immediately. They see a person who is willing to take the blame for things they never did, someone who will apologize for the other person's cruelty, and someone who will tirelessly pour out affection even when they are being starved of it. They feast on your endless capacity to understand their trauma, weaponizing your compassion against you. Whenever they hurt you, they will feed you a crumb of vulnerability, a tearful story about their own difficult past, knowing exactly how your nervous system will react. Your hyper-empathy will instantly override your self-preservation. You will swallow your anger, bury your boundaries, and step right back into the role of the martyr. What you fail to realize in the blinding fog of this dynamic is that your relentless attempts to heal them are actually destroying you on a cellular level. You cannot love the toxicity out of a person who uses their brokenness as a weapon to control you. The more you give, the more entitled they become to your life force. They will drain your finances, your mental health, your physical energy, and your spirit, all while convincing you that you are the one who is failing them. You begin to suffer from a profound loss of identity. Your entire existence becomes a reactive echo to their moods. If they are angry, you are anxious. If they are sad, you are depressed. You have allowed their psychological state to completely colonize your own mind. This is the agonizing treadmill of the trauma-bonded empath. You run yourself to the brink of physical and mental collapse, desperately trying to bleed enough to satisfy a vampire that is fundamentally incapable of being satiated. You tell yourself that you are being noble, that you are honoring your empathic nature. But in the clinical darkness of the therapy room, I must tell you the truth. You are participating in your own psychological destruction. You are using their chaos as a distraction from confronting the gaping, unhealed wounds of your own inner child. Until you recognize that this endless cycle of fixing others is merely a compulsion born from your own trauma, you will remain a prisoner to their dysfunction. The breaking point and the death of the savior complex. But a parasite can only feed for so long before the host is entirely depleted, bringing us to the silent, invisible collapse that must occur before the ultimate, chilling severance. There is a precise, measurable breaking point in the human psyche, a moment that defies the melodramatic expectations of cinematic breakdowns. It does not happen during a screaming match. It does not happen amidst a flood of hysterical tears or flying objects. The true breaking point, the one that alters the trajectory of a human life forever, happens in near absolute silence. It is the moment the savior complex finally dies of starvation. For years, perhaps decades, you have operated on the fundamental delusion that if you just explained your pain clearly enough, they would finally understand. You thought that if you found the perfect combination of words, the right tone of voice, or the exact right moment to express how much they were hurting you, a light bulb would go off in their head. You waited in agony for the day they would look at you with genuine remorse and say, "I see what I have done to you, and I am so sorry." This hope was the invisible thread keeping you tethered to the abuse. It is the lifeblood of the trauma bond. But then, a seemingly insignificant event occurs. A passing cruel remark, a broken promise, a moment of blatant dismissal. And in a fraction of a millisecond, the illusion shatters permanently. In my practice, I have heard clients describe this moment as a distinct physical sensation, a quiet, hollow click in the center of their chest. It is the profound, devastating realization that they are never going to change. They are never going to see your pain because they do not care about your pain. Your suffering is merely the currency they use to purchase their own comfort. In this exact second, the frantic, hyper-vigilant radar inside your brain powers down. The desperate need to analyze their moods, to predict their next outburst, or to excavate their trauma for an excuse completely evaporates. You stop looking at them as a broken soul in need of your divine healing, and you finally see them for exactly what they are, a danger to your survival. This is not a moment of hatred. Hatred requires passion, and passion requires energy, energy that you no longer possess. This is a moment of profound terminal exhaustion. It is the death of hope, and I must tell you, it is the most beautiful death you will ever experience, because when the hope that they will change dies, the hope for your own life is reborn. The energy that was hemorrhaging out of you to keep their chaotic world spinning suddenly reverses its flow. You realize, with bone-chilling clarity, that every ounce of empathy you have poured into their bottomless pit was an act of violence against yourself. The silence that follows is the sound of you silently gathering your shattered pieces from the floor. You do not demand an apology. You do not write a long, passionate letter explaining why you are leaving, because you finally understand that handing them a map of your vulnerabilities will only give them new targets to strike. You simply stop participating. The umbilical cord of emotional supply is violently cut. This is the origin of the deadpan stare and the flat tone I described at the very beginning. The emotional numbness society views as cruel is, in clinical terms, a massive firewall dropping into place to protect a system that was on the verge of a fatal crash. You are not punishing them. You are quarantining a deadly virus. You have looked into the abyss of what it costs to keep them in your life, and you have finally, irrevocably decided that the price is too high. The weaponization of forgiveness and the smear campaign. When you finally sever that parasitic bond and drop the firewall, you will not be met with understanding. Instead, you will face the full, terrifying wrath of a system that relies on your subservience. The moment you walk away, the moment you implement that chilling silence, you disrupt the entire ecosystem of dysfunction. Toxic family systems, narcissistic partners, and manipulative social circles operate like cults. They rely on the silent agreement that someone must serve as the emotional garbage disposal. And by walking away, you have committed the ultimate treason. This is where you will face the most brutal psychological warfare of your life, not just from the abusers, but from society itself. We live in a culture that has deeply perverted the concept of forgiveness, morphing it into a weapon used to bludgeon victims into silence. The moment you declare no contact, a chorus of flying monkeys, well-meaning but entirely ignorant friends, relatives, and enablers will descend upon you. They will recite the toxic scripts society has drilled into them. But it's your mother. Blood is thicker than water. You only get one family, or you need to be the bigger person and let it go. They will demand that you offer unconditional forgiveness, framing your boundary as an act of immaturity, bitterness, or cruelty. Let me be unequivocally clear from a psychological standpoint. Demanding that a victim forgive their unrepentant abuser is not a spiritual virtue. It is an act of profound psychological violence. True forgiveness requires accountability, changed behavior, and a genuine reckoning with the harm caused. What society is demanding of you is not forgiveness. They are demanding emotional amnesia. They are demanding that you swallow your trauma, ignore your bleeding wounds, and step back into the line of fire solely to make them feel comfortable. The enablers are terrified of your boundary because your courage holds up a mirror to their own cowardice. If you can walk away from the abuse, they are forced to question why they are still silently tolerating it. When guilt tripping fails to reel you back in, the abuser will inevitably launch the smear campaign. Because they can no longer control you, they must control how everyone else sees you. You will be painted as unstable, crazy, heartless, and manipulative. They will play the devastated victim, shedding crocodile tears and telling anyone who will listen how completely blindsided they are by your sudden cruelty, conveniently omitting the years of psychological torture they inflicted upon you behind closed doors. They will twist every reactive mistake you ever made while under severe distress into proof that you were the toxic one all along. This is the gauntlet you must run. Your nervous system, which has been wired to crave approval and fear conflict, will scream at you to defend yourself, to present your evidence, to beg the world to see the truth. But you must resist. Engaging in the smear campaign is just another way of remaining attached to the chaos. You must undergo the brutal, agonizing initiation of allowing yourself to be the villain in their heavily edited, fictitious narrative. You must learn to sit in the extreme discomfort of being misunderstood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Protecting your peace requires accepting that their version of the story will never align with reality, and realizing that you no longer need it to. Let them have their lies. Let them paint you as the monster. You have traded your reputation in a sick, dysfunctional theater for the absolute sanctuary of your own freedom, and that is a trade you must be willing to make every single day. The sovereign self and the brutal peace of the void. Standing firm amidst that raging storm of guilt and societal condemnation is what finally ushers you into the profound, untouchable silence of true liberation. When the dust of the smear campaign settles, when the flying monkeys retreat, and when your phone stops ringing with manipulative demands, you will find yourself standing in a vast, unfamiliar expanse. I call this the void. For the first time in your life, the deafening symphony of other people's crises, demands, and emotional turbulence has been completely muted. At first, this silence will not feel peaceful. It will feel terrifying. Because your nervous system has been addicted to high-stakes emotional survival for decades, the absence of an immediate threat will trick your brain into thinking something is horribly wrong. You will experience withdrawal symptoms from the chaos. This is the most critical phase of your psychological evolution. You must not fill this void with new toxic dynamics. You must sit in the heavy, uncomfortable silence until the ringing in your ears finally stops. As the weeks turn into months, a miraculous transformation begins to unfold within the deepest architecture of your mind. The hyper-vigilant radar, exhausted from a lifetime of service, finally begins to power down for good. The cortisol that has been flooding your veins begins to recede. Your body, which has been braced for impact since childhood, slowly learns how to exhale. In this space, you begin the sacred work of constructing the sovereign self. You discover who you are when you are not existing solely as an emotional sponge for damaged people. You will find that the empathy you thought was gone, the empathy that seemed to vanish in that moment of chilling silence, has not disappeared at all. Instead, it has been refined, purified, and finally placed under your conscious control. You no longer absorb the pain of a room by default. Empathy is no longer a desperate survival reflex. It becomes a deliberate, conscious choice. You choose when to open the door to your heart, and more importantly, you know exactly how to slam it shut and lock it the second someone attempts to exploit it. You realize that true compassion requires boundaries made of steel. You learn to give freely to those who have demonstrated the capacity to respect your limits, and you offer nothing but an unyielding, icy void to those who seek to consume you. The profound cruelty you were accused of in the beginning is finally revealed for what it truly is: radical, unapologetic self-love. When you sit across from me in that clinical room, your eyes steady and your breathing calm, stating that you have cut them off completely, I do not see a villain. I do not see a broken, heartless empath. I see a survivor who has successfully navigated the most treacherous psychological labyrinth known to the human experience. I see someone who has reclaimed their life force from the jaws of emotional vampires. The terrifying silence you carry is not the absence of love. It is the absolute presence of self-respect. It is the impregnable fortress of a soul that will never ever allow itself to be set on fire for the warmth of a parasite again. Welcome to the other side of the illusion. Welcome to your freedom. And finally, conclusion. The journey from a trauma-bonded empath to a sovereign, liberated individual is a brutal but necessary evolution. For years, your hyper-vigilant nervous system, forged in childhood unpredictability, tricked you into believing that chaos was home, and love had to be earned by endlessly fixing broken people. You became a host for emotional parasites, draining your own life force to satiate those who willingly weaponized your compassion. However, the turning point arrives not with a dramatic explosion, but in profound silence. The exact moment your savior complex dies of starvation. You finally realize that your suffering is merely the currency they use for their own comfort, and you irrevocably cut the umbilical cord of emotional supply. Surviving the ensuing psychological warfare, the guilt trips, the societal demands for premature forgiveness, and the vicious smear campaigns requires the radical acceptance of being painted as the villain in their fictitious narratives. By standing firm in the uncomfortable, quiet void that follows, you allow your exhausted nervous system to recalibrate. Ultimately, you reclaim your identity, transforming your empathy from a desperate survival reflex into a deliberate, fiercely protected choice. The emotional detachment society labels as cruel is actually the highest form of self-love, an impregnable fortress ensuring you will never again set yourself on fire to keep a parasite warm. The profound lesson: empathy without ironclad boundaries is not a virtue. It is psychological self-destruction. The compulsion to heal, fix, and endlessly forgive others at the expense of your own mental and physical health is a trauma response, not a spiritual calling. You cannot love the toxicity out of someone who utilizes their brokenness as a tool to control and consume you. True compassion demands radical self-preservation. How to apply it to your life. Audit your relationships today and immediately stop over-explaining your boundaries to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. If someone consistently drains your energy, dismisses your reality, or demands emotional amnesia under the guise of forgiveness, deploy your firewall. Resign from your self-appointed role as their savior and therapist. You must learn to sit comfortably with the fact that protecting your peace will inevitably make you the villain in someone else's heavily edited story. Redirect the immense energy you spend managing other people's chaotic moods back into healing your own nervous system. Treating your empathy as a highly exclusive privilege rather than an all-access pass. Question for the community: have you ever experienced that quiet click moment where you finally realized you had to walk away from a toxic dynamic for good? Please share your story and perspective in the comment section below so we can all learn and draw strength from each other's experiences. If you found value in this message, please subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue creating deep, impactful content like this for you.